A little bit of movement in terms of the Treasury trade, in terms of the equity trade, not too much. We're seeing really a quiet market here as we get ready to wrap up just one more day of trading after today in 2025. All right, let's get right out to Washington, get more on those FOMC minutes. Tyler Kendall, she's Bloomberg TV Washington reporter. She's live at the Federal Reserve. Tyler, take it away.
Yeah, hey, Carol. Well, you really hit most of the main headlines here when it comes to what is a divided FOMC, with the minutes showing most officials see additional interest rate cuts as likely appropriate if inflation declines over time as expected. Yet we did get further signaling from some participants on the committee who suggested that under their economic outlooks, it would likely be appropriate to keep the target range unchanged for, quote, some time. According to the minutes, quote, several participants pointed to the risk of higher inflation becoming entrenched and suggested that lowering the policy rate further in the context of elevated inflation readings could be misinterpreted as implying diminished policymaker commitment to that 2% inflation goal. Participants judged that a careful balancing of risks was required and agreed on the importance of well-anchored longer-term inflation expectations in achieving the committee's dual mandate. Of course, the minutes really are putting a finer point on the fact that this was a divided FOMC as participants weighed the risks between employment and inflation. And of course, this was when we got that summary of economic projections and we looked at the dot plot, which had that range of projections for next year and where policymakers ultimately think neutral is. I'll give you one other quote that was important to pay attention to here, which is that, quote, a few of those who supported lowering the policy rate at this meeting indicated that the decision was finely balanced, or that they could have supported keeping that target rate unchanged. It is clear that these minutes are showing that there's a lot of divisions ahead, and it's not really clear exactly where that policy path is headed.
Yeah, exactly, Tyler. And we were looking to these minutes to perhaps give us a little more detail on just how fractious the committee is right now. Did we get any more detail on just the turbulence within the Fed and the variety of opinions?
Well, of course, there were the main dissents, Vonnie, when it came to the opposite ends of the policy spectrum. Of course, one of them was clearly defined in that of the newer Fed Governor Stephen Miron. But we were also paying really close attention when it came to the discussion around the so-called quiet dissents, as 6 policymakers chose not to revise down their forecast for this year. So as we go through these, we're still sort of trying to piece together exactly where that policy debate is headed up, because at this point, it's not totally clear exactly the destination that they are heading to, or how quickly perhaps they are going to get to that destination.
Yeah, and in terms of decisions, too, as we look ahead to what the Fed may be doing in 2026, the other thing we're thinking about, Tyler, is the decision by President Trump as to who will lead the next head of the Fed, or be the next head of the Federal Reserve. That press event yesterday, he talked about that he has a preferred candidate. He said he could still fire Jay Powell. I'm just curious if you're getting any more intel from the White House about who it might be, when we might get a decision.
Right, exactly. Well, we heard President Trump yesterday say that he still has his favorite pick, and that has not changed, and that he will announce him when the time is right, in President Trump's words, though he did go on to indicate that we can't expect a decision within the next month. But it comes as the White House is continuing the interviews. Bloomberg News has confirmed that BlackRock's Rick Rieder will meet privately with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago as we really zero in on the top 4 contenders. Our reporting indicates, of course, that includes Rieder alongside current Fed Governor Christopher Waller, also interviewed with President Trump earlier this month, and then, of course, former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh and the NEC Director Kevin Hassett. But really, President Trump has often made perhaps contradictory statements when it comes to his process and how he's going to choose the next Fed chair. But the one through line, the one consistency, has been his criticism of the current Fed chair, Jerome Powell, as you mentioned yesterday, renewing his attacks on Powell, including potentially re-threatening, because we heard this earlier in the year, that there could be a lawsuit over the Fed's renovations to their headquarters, where I am here in Washington. So something to watch closely. But of course, President Trump has previously indicated that Powell's job would be safe in a bid to tamp down on the markets.